Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flack.
Jesus said, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needed clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." That is Matthew chapter 25, verses 35, 36, and 40, some of my favorite verses. I'm your host, Sandra Flack. Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, where it is my honor to encourage and equip you for your parenting journey. I've been an adoptive mom for over 26 years, so I get it. I know what it's like. My husband and I have been, we've raised 5 children from kinship and international adoptions, and really 2 are still home. We have a 19 and 21-year-olds still at home. Both have, all of our kids have trauma, adversity, and several of them were prenatally exposed to alcohol, and the youngest 2 being diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome. So, I know the challenges and the joys along this road. And I hope that this podcast will become an invaluable resource for your journey. And today we have some special guests with us. I'm excited to introduce you to. This is a mother-son duo, Michelle Snyder and Ben Snyder Jr. Michelle owns a private counseling practice in Winter Garden, Florida, where I'm sure it is much warmer there than it is here in upstate New York. But she provides mental health support to a variety of populations. She has been a licensed clinical social worker since 2009. Michelle does life with her husband of 16 years, along with a mix of biological and adoptive kids, and occasionally some children from foster care in there. And Ben Jr. is 14 years old and working hard toward completing an associate's degree at Lake Sumter State College at age 14. We'll be asking him about that. In addition to being a foster care adoption advocate, he likes to play chess, hunt, and read. Together, Michelle and Ben Jr. have authored the book, Beyond Blood: How Being a Foster Brother Shattered My World and Rebuilt It. Please welcome Michelle and Ben Snyder Jr. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Well, I am thrilled. I have both of you on my screen. And for those of us who may watch this on our YouTube channel, they'll get to see both of you. But I haven't met you in person yet, but I've read your book and have learned of your story. And I'm just very excited to introduce you to our audience. So I always love to start at the beginning, right? So the beginning of your journey, Michelle, you and your husband, Ben Sr., have 2 biological kids, Ben Jr., who's with us, and your daughter, Annabelle, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So what led you and Ben Sr. to pursue foster care?
Well, that's a great question. So when I was young, I actually was in a situation where I wasn't able to stay with my biological family. So I was raised by a relative who took me in and provided for me selflessly, even though she didn't have a lot. And that was inspiring to me, honestly. And so as I got older and I got married, and my husband and I wanted to find a way to live out our faith, with our resources and our time. And we started praying about it. And really, it just seemed very natural to us because I had already, been on the other side of that fence to now come and pay forward the kindness that had been shown to me as well, and to kind of be there for other kids who were in a similar situation to what I had been in.
Yeah, I love that. I too have I have my husband and I adopted our first adoption was our daughter is was a kinship. So she was a relative that came to live with us for a period of time and then we eventually adopted her and then eventually adopted internationally as well. So
It's
I'm
incredible.
yeah, familiar with that, part of the story.
Mhm.
Very
Mhm.
common. And then Ben, let me ask you, how old were you when your parents began fostering and what were your thoughts at the time when they first because I know they met with you and your sister and kind of explained and presented the idea to you guys. So tell us about what you were thinking.
Well, I was 4 at the time, so I mean, at that time you're still learning what's normal and stuff. So I think you kind of just like adjust to it. And when they were coming through, then it was just like, oh, this is a new life lesson to learn. And you just adapted to like having new experiences and learning new struggles and waking up and not knowing who will or won't be there aside from your immediate family.
Yeah, I know you have a very mature outlook compared to most kids your age,
Thank you.
which I know we'll kind of get more of a glimpse of. Michelle, how many years have you been fostering so far?
So it's been off and on for 10 years. It's been the last decade now. And actually this will be the 11th year, I guess. So yeah, we've been doing it for a long time, and it wasn't something that we ever set out to do for an extended period of time. We just thought, well, when we first signed up, we said we'll just do respite care. We'll take in kids on the weekend and see how that goes. But as soon as we got started, we just dove in the deep end, and once we had gotten our first placement, we just never looked back. So we knew it was definitely going to be a good fit for us and a good fit for our biological kids as well.
Yeah, the phone calls don't stop, right?
You don't, it doesn't matter how many seats you have in your car or how many beds you have, or definitely doesn't matter what time it is. So
Yeah.
the need is just so great. I mean, there's always kids. I know here where I live in Central Florida, unfortunately there's kids, sleeping in on office couches and things like that as they're trying to find placement.
Yeah, very familiar story, really across the United States, right? In every state. Your family experienced the heartbreak of kids coming and staying and then leaving, right? And having to say goodbye after you get attached. So I'd like both of you to give an answer from your unique perspectives. What was or what has that roller coaster ride been like? You get kids come in, you get attached to them, but then all of a sudden they're gone. How has that been for
Mhm.
you guys?
Mhm. Is it okay if I answer first?
Sure.
So I would say from my perspective, honestly, I always struggled. I would be scared and feel like I was inadequate every single time. And I had to remind myself the kiddo's twice as scared as I am. We're gonna do our best, and our best will be enough, and God will provide also for us as we need and as we go. So then of course once the kiddos show up, then it's kind of, you're in the mode to kind of help everyone to settle in, help them to learn they're in a safe environment, that kind of thing. So then you're busy with that and kind of get settled in. And of course, I mean, then we fall in love with the kids inevitably. Um, and and then, of course, we know eventually they're going to transition out. And we always tried to make that a positive experience when they transitioned out. We would always try to do a pizza party or something to say, oh, you're getting to transition to your aunt's house or grandparents or back to your bio, parents or whatever it is. So we tried to make that a positive experience for the kids and be encouraging. But of course, once the door shuts, then we just have to take time to grieve. And we learned the grieving process very well. So we knew, we were going to cry. It was going to be difficult to eat for a couple days. We were going to go through some things, but it completely worth it.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I would say, just like she said, like once the kid steps through the door, the rubber hits the road, and you're just like frantically trying to get ready. You were almost never completely ready before a kid got there. It was always like still assembling the room and like recovering from the last kid, and you usually like didn't know exactly what you were walking into, but you just fell in love through the chaos. And I
Mhm.
think just as much as they loved us, we loved them as well. And it would be like losing Annabelle when they're gone. It's just you love them so much, and you have all of the inside jokes that a family would have, and all of the memories, the ups and downs. And I think you bond even more through the downs than the ups because it teaches you to turn back into family. And so when they left, like my mom said, lots of grieving and crying and look back through the photos that we had with them and think about all the memories. And it was always really hard because most of them you never heard from again. But yeah.
So you really said goodbye to a lot of brothers and sisters over the years, right? And some
Yes,
stayed
ma'am.
longer and some, not for that long, but always hard to say goodbye. And there's definitely that grief process. Ben, how would you say that being a foster brother has changed you?
I would say it's helped me see the world in a different way, realize that not everybody has the ability to go to a dentist. So like I used to be like going to the dentist to get my teeth cleaned. Oh, how miserable. But then I came in and saw these kids with like painful broken teeth and I was like, "Oh, I'm glad that my parents provide that stuff for me." And even in the story when some kids thought that when we said you can have fry, that it would mean like a single fry, it just made you have a whole different outlook on life and made you be a lot more humble and not take anything for granted. It made you realize like these kids haven't done anything and yet are still so broken and they don't deserve to be where they are. But just to be grateful for every last thing you have and count your blessings.
Such wisdom there.
Mm.
So,
Thank you.
Michelle, how has Ben being a foster family affected or changed your marriage and your family unit with Ben Jr. and Annabelle?
Mhm. That's a great question. I will say one of the biggest things that we didn't even realize was going on until we did start fostering is we did not realize how self-focused we were. We seemed to be constantly trying to meet our whims or the things that we wanted, thinking that they were needs, when in reality they were just whims and desires that were unnecessary and were completely unimportant. And once we started bringing in these just incredible, innocent survivors that needed support, and we were able to form relationships with them, and that became our focus. Then honestly, it brought us together as a family unit and helped us to bond together in kind of a common cause, and really improved our teamwork as a family and our outlook on life and our faith. That's a time you start to lean a lot more heavily on God too, because there's so many unknowns involved. It really does require a lot of faith.
Yeah, I totally agree from my personal experience as well. You really grow in your faith when you're in, kind of walking through the fire, right? So, and a lot of times that's what it feels like.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that. Michelle, how many kids have you fostered over the years, and have you adopted any of them?
Mhm. We've fostered, I get asked that question a lot. It's over 20 kids, but and we've had probably around 23, 24, something like that. And it's been all different lengths of time. I'd say an average, it's been kind of, 2, 3 months maybe, but we've definitely have several placements that ended up being a weekend placement or an overnight placement. And then we've had some that were longer term that were a year or longer.
Mm.
So yeah, so in that, and we had ages 2 weeks was our youngest. He was 4 pounds, and then we've had some teenagers up to, including an 18-year-old. So yeah, so that was right. And then we did go through. We had a foster kiddo, a teen girl that we brought in, and we did go through the adoption process with her. And it was incredible to participate in that too. It was not something obviously that we had done before, and it was during COVID, so that really made everything kind of different than we had expected, as we got to know each other. But it was a really nice time for us to be able to help her gain independence. And once she turned 18, she really did kind of transition back to being a lot more independent. So we haven't had a lot of contact with her since she's left. So it kind of now it's been a couple years since that placement, and so now there's loss there, but it's
Mm.
similar to the loss that we felt with 20 plus other kids as well. So it was a familiar pain.
Yeah. So, but did the adoption get finalized, and then she still left when she was 18?
Yes,
Yes.
the adoption did get finalized. I mean, I don't think it's a completely uncommon experience. And the reality is that we had so many measures of success together. We had so many positive experiences. We did, you know, trips to see the fall leaves and experience the snow and go to sporting events for her and different things like that. So I think it was a positive experience overall. And I think that there was a lot of progress made. And typically what we've seen with most of our foster placements is it's not a linear, they drop in our house and now we're linear,
Right.
a happy ending story that's a straight path. Normally we have chunks of time where we're able to show them a stable family, parents who care, that kind of thing, stability, consistency, and that'll happen in different pockets of time in their life. So hopefully when they are older and have their own children, if they decide to do that, or, go on and have their own family, that they can look back and remember, this is what that looks like. I remember now.
Yeah, definitely investing into in the future for sure.
Mhm.
So Ben, in your book, Beyond Blood, you talk about some challenges that you had faced and ultimately getting diagnosed as twice gifted. So would you share about that for our listeners?
Well, I mean, since I was young, then I've always had a different set of strengths and weaknesses than most people. I always did pretty well in school, but also I'd come home and like be given a really simple task and in like 5 seconds forget it. And that ultimately ended up being the ADHD. And then I always had a problem with like tags in my shirts and different things. And we wrote about that in there too. And it was just a really like interesting process to go through because I had always thought I was just like average and stuff, and I was just like I just got lucky in school or whatever. But it's hard to describe. What would you say?
I mean, I think that you have a sensitivity to you because of that. I mean, it's something that thank goodness we found out and that we had the tools and resources to find out, huh?
Yeah,
Um, that your experience with that. So,
yeah,
Yeah, very good, very good. Because we're all wired differently, right? And we all
mhm.
have
yes,
strengths and challenges for sure. Speaking of challenges, Michelle, I know Ben talks about in the book, many of the challenges your family faced over the years, different things with different kids. But would you just share some of those kind of, you don't have to go in,
Mhm.
terribly deeply, but just some of the challenges that you faced.
Yeah, sure. There were so many different areas of challenges that we faced. And I honestly think just going back to talking about Ben's, with his being twice exceptional, it was so helpful because once we had an answer, it was just a huge sigh of relief so that we were able to understand Ben better and where he was coming from. And he was able to understand, why the world didn't work the way it seemed like it should, to him. And so that was really helpful. And so we were able when we brought kids in, and once we had gone through that process, especially to look and see what are the independent needs of this kiddo. We had we had a kiddo that had fetal alcohol syndrome. And so, it was one of those things where we had already had the experience of, okay, I may give this child a direction and they're going to go a different direction and they're going to go do something else. And I might do that 5 times a row and they go somewhere else. And I'm that may not be disobedience. That may just be a cognitive processing challenge. So learning, you know, each individual child. So working with kiddos with things like fetal alcohol syndrome or who had been drug exposed, those were challenges. And it was really helpful when we had that information ahead of time. Sometimes we did, sometimes we had to figure it out. Lots of physical health issues too, not surprisingly. We had one little girl that had microencephaly, so she had a seizure disorder as well. And so that's something that we had to be, really careful with her health and making sure she got her meds. And I'm sure you read in the book. I remember now we put just a little bit about her story in there
Yeah.
too. And so that was a challenge too. And then of course, we had a couple of girls that came that had been mistreated by men, and they were absolutely terrified of any males. And I think those were probably, all of the placements were important, but this was the work that we were able to do with those kiddos for them to learn there are men and boys who are safe, who are faithful, who, that you can trust and who will support you. I think those were just valuable things. When one of the girls, when she first came, we couldn't, Ben and his dad couldn't even make eye contact with her or go near her. and by the end of the placement, of course, she was running, push me on the swings, color with me, that kind of thing. But at the very beginning, it was you couldn't be in the same room and talk without her getting nervous about it. So yeah, there's so many different things that would come up, and we just never knew what to expect. The teens were completely different, challenges in the kiddos too. So, but they were a lot of fun. Well, most of the time when we had teens, they were behind academically, but really smart kiddos that were behind academically. So working to get them caught up was something that we did together, and it was a way that we kind of spent time together, which was a fun thing to do, and it made them feel good about themselves too.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm glad you mentioned the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, because that's, part of my family story. My youngest two that are 19 and 21 are both diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome. So we've been on that journey for many, many years. And I got professional training to be able to train parents and professionals and caregivers. And then we have a support group online for parents raising kids prenatally exposed, because that's like next level
Incredible.
challenging, right?
It really is.
Yeah. And it's probably over 80% of the kiddos in foster care have been prenatally exposed, but most are not diagnosed. And then
Right.
most foster and adoptive parents have not had any training in that area either. So,
That's
makes
right.
it very challenging. So we try to make a difference there as well.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So I also wanted to ask you about the importance of your church, because I know Ben in the book mentions, you had a challenge finding, a church family that really understood what you guys were doing. What would you say, and either one of you can answer this, I guess, what would you say is the importance of finding the right church family to really wrap around and support your family, a foster or adoptive family?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I was just thinking when we were talking about, the FASD, how important and vital community is, and like-minded community who understand and know what you're going through, or when you meet and spend time together as, as friends or go out or whatever, what to expect with behaviors with the other kids and how to handle those types of things. So it's the same thing with, church was an absolute lifeline for us. So we were just so blessed to be connected to people who, when we felt like we were drowning, show up with food and show up and offer to babysit and that kind of thing. But more importantly than that, a lot of them were doing the exact same work we were doing. So they understood in a way that is impossible to understand unless you're actually walking a mile in our shoes. And a lot of these families are. And I mean, who better to do orphan care work than the church? So it's incredible to have been part, of a church that's able to really dive in the deep end and step out in faith. And if people aren't taking in foster kids themselves, then they're preparing. Here's the closets of clothes and supplies and things so that we can send them over, or here's babysitting services. We're going to get this all lined up. So when this person gets a placement, we can help them. And honestly, just people to go sit with and cry with and pray with and say, I don't understand this. It's so hard, that kind of thing. And who are going to support you and help build you back up and just be there for the kids and love on the kids as well.
Yeah, and to have a church that has other kids that are like the kids that you're caring for, so that they're even comfortable there.
Absolutely. The kids are excited and they're asking to go. That's them. And they have their friends there. It's incredible. Yeah, it is wonderful to be a part of.
Sandra Flack, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphansny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphansny.org/hope-community.
So together you wrote Beyond Blood, How Being a Foster Brother Shattered My World and Rebuilt It. So why did you write this book?
I'm probably just like when I found out that a lot of families that were thinking about fostering didn't do it because of the effect it would have on their biological kids, I wanted to say that it had like a positive experience on me and that I think it's a good thing to go through the hardships and it helps your family bond. It helps you get a new worldview. I think that I just wanted to like spread my experience as one of the biological kids so that other hopefully foster families would see it and know that their kids could get like bettered by it and they wouldn't be hurt.
Or you can grow from the pain as well. I mean, certainly we went through a lot of pain. You went
Oh
through
yeah.
a lot of pain, huh? But
Yeah, but in the long term you grow from it.
and what's interesting is a lot of the kids, I mean, there's so many kids that we've, especially because we took in a lot of toddlers and babies that we haven't heard from again. But Ben also has formed lifelong friendships with some of our kiddos that came through here. And I mean, that's the best part is when we're able to continue to be friends with, family members or relatives of these kiddos and keep doing life with them. Or now because you're so old now Ben's going to college and, running into kids that he's known growing up and stuff too, or kids that came through our house at one time. And that's really special too.
Yeah, I love that. And that's, you've kind of addressed two of the points that, many people use as excuses for not, fostering or even adopting. And that's, having to say goodbye and how painful that is, right? I would never be able to say goodbye. You hear that a lot.
I do. Yeah.
And that is definitely something that does happen and there is grief. And then there's growth, right? And then also the other thing we often hear is, but what about my biological kids? It would, I don't want to have a negative effect on them. And clearly in your family, it's really had the opposite effect, right? Because it's really given, I believe Ben, a passion to pursue in his life down the road. So I love that. I love that.
It is true. I mean, almost every day, that's what we would heard. Oh, I thought about it, but I could never say goodbye. But I have biological kids.
Yeah.
Those were the two things that I just heard almost every single day. And that was really one of the reasons why we said we should say something. Because now that we're 10 years down the road and can mention outcomes, we are here to say the grieving process happens, but you can learn what to expect. You can learn to manage it and work through it. And it is dramatically more important and more beneficial to participate in these kiddos' lives and to just be a participant in redemption, right? The
Yeah.
gospel work of redemption, than to be afraid to say goodbye and allowing our kids to go through difficult situations is maybe one of the healthier things we can do.
Yeah. And also, a lot of times it's easier when you do have biological kids because then the kids adapt easier. I feel like they like trust the kids easier than they do the adults because they see a part of themselves in them.
The foster kids trust you guys
Yeah.
first. Oh, that's always true. Yeah, I always saw the kids that came to our home, they would be nervous and scared, but as soon as they saw other little kids smiling and holding up toys and stuff, you could just see them let their guard down right away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It gave that, sense of safety, right? Because there's other kids and they're smiling and they're safe, right? So it's safe for me. So that's a great point as well. So the title of the book, and I'm going to hold it up for our YouTube viewers. It is Beyond Blood, How Being a Foster Brother Shattered My World and Rebuilt It, by Michelle Snyder and Ben Snyder Jr. Where could our listeners, viewers find a copy of your book?
Great question. It's available on all major sellers. You can get on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, Dallas Books has it, you name it. Yeah. If you just do a search online, you should be able to pick it up anywhere. Amazon's always the fastest. So.
Yeah. And it's a great resource, I think, for families that are currently fostering or who have adopted, or for families that are considering and they're having those thoughts like, but what about saying goodbye? Or what about my biological kids? It's a great, peek into, what that is like and what kind of impact, because it wasn't all, roses and daisies, right? There, it was, you do talk about the challenges that your whole family went through at times, very honestly and transparently. So it is I highly recommend it as a resource. It's definitely a good picture of that. Do you guys have a website or social media or anything in case our listeners want to contact you or learn more?
We sure do. I do. I have an Instagram at Michelle C. Snyder that anybody can contact there. I also have a private practice counseling center, Snyder Counseling and Consulting.com. So anybody can reach out to me through there. You can go to that webpage and I have an email address and phone number through there that they can contact as well.
Great, great. We'll make sure we put those links, links to those in the show notes so our listeners can find you.
Great.
So what about Ben? What are your plans for the future? I know because are you still 14 or have you turned 15?
Just turned 15 December 10th.
Okay, so just turned 15 and you're going to college. So that's a little
Yes,
bit
ma'am.
ahead of schedule. So tell us your plans.
I hope to finish out this year and hopefully get my AA and my high school diploma either in December or January sometime of this upcoming year. And then after that, I want to transfer to UCF and hopefully finish out my bachelor's degree there and then get an MBA and go into land with my dad. He works in real estate and I've always kind of admired what he did. And I also want to try and use my platform that I have, being a little bit younger, to try and spread the word about foster care and adoption, but also my faith.
I love that. Love that. You have a bright future ahead of you, I am
Thank you.
sure. What about Michelle? Do you guys continue to foster? What are your plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll certainly, so right now we put our license on hold for a little while. Sometimes I think it's super important to take a respite for a while. So I was running a private practice. We were working on this book and kind of healing from sometimes when we have a placement that's been here longer than that leaves, then we take a little bit of time to recover from that and just, kind of take a respite. So we've been doing that a little bit while focusing on the book and running my private practice and letting Ben get kind of settled into college. He's starting his third semester there now.
Yeah.
So, we stay involved. Like we continue to meet with our friends who are, most of our network is foster and adoptive families. So we're closely connected to them. We try to make sure we're, babysitting and staying engaged and doing life with everybody. And I'm sure we'll pull our license back in and get our feet back wet again soon. So
Yeah, wisdom in taking those respites yourself, and allow for times of healing for sure.
mhm.
Ben, you are such a compassionate and empathetic young person. Most of our listeners are adoptive and foster parents. And I always like to wrap up with a question, asking our guests to share, just some words of encouragement. So from your perspective as, the bio son of foster parents and having had this experience throughout your childhood, would you share some words of encouragement to our parents that are listening?
Absolutely. I think that, whatever your fears are, there's a chance that they'll come true. But also in the book, you can see everything happens for a reason. And no matter what, you can turn back to God. And I think that no matter what you go through, the ups are obviously amazing, but the downs help you just bond with the people around you and help you strengthen your faith. I think the valleys. And I think that no matter what, you'll get through it and come out better on the other side.
I love that. And do you think that one day you will become a foster parent?
Absolutely. I hope to foster and adopt.
Yeah, I love that. I have a dear friend, she's probably listening to this podcast, who she grew up and her parents fostered many, many, many kids, adopted some. And now she and her husband also have been fostering and have adopted for many years now. So definitely it can be such a positive and life-changing experience for the kids that we bring into our homes, but also for our kids that are in the home and our families. So thank you for that word of encouragement. And Michelle, pretty similar question, as a foster adoptive parent, as a mom, would you offer some words of encouragement from your perspective?
Sure, absolutely. I think, the biggest thing I'd like to say is to not be afraid to step out of your fence lines and just get involved into the unknown and just step out in faith and do something, because that's when God has the opportunity to show up and we can make big things happen and change lives. And I mean, look, if we're able to look at our lives and look at our decisions from an eternal perspective instead of a temporal perspective, it changes everything. It changes what the pain and the grieving, what the point of them are, what the value of them is, and the outcome as well, because our faith is strengthened. We keep that eternal perspective, and we spend our lives on something with just, great value. So
Yeah, I think it's also like, sorry to interject, but I think like one thing that often goes without being said is that there will be hard times, but also these kids can bless you so much, just like watching them play and learn and grow. I think that it's just some of the highest highs are when you're with the kids and bonding with them, and just seeing exactly how much they can positively affect you, not only in the long term, but also in the short term.
we always say, like, we hopefully one day we'll be out of a job. There will be no more foster families needed anymore, and all kids will have a home. So that is the ideal. That's what would be amazing if that could happen. But until that happens, then our lives have been so incredibly blessed by being able to participate in their walk as well. So
I love that. Michelle, Ben, thank you so much for all that you've done over the years, investing into the lives of these kids, for writing this invaluable resource for families and those considering, and for sharing your story with us today. Thanks so much.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sandra. I appreciate you and the work you're doing as well.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to the adoption and foster care journey today. I hope you were inspired and encouraged by my conversation with Michelle and Ben Snyder Jr. I mean, who couldn't be inspired? Who wouldn't be inspired by that young man and their incredible story and their family? So I hope that you found some encouragement there as well. And make sure you check out the show notes for this episode so that you can find the title of his book, and you can be looking for that wherever you purchase your books. It's a great resource. In addition to encouraging you through this podcast, I also want to equip you for your parenting journey. You heard our little commercial about Hope for the FASD Journey support community. I also offer one-on-one parent coaching online. So if that is something you want a little bit more personalized, a little bit more one-on-one kind of thing, you can contact me about getting some coaching to help you navigate FASD and your kids and what accommodations might work best and that sort of thing. And I also offer online and in-person workshops, and over on our website, justicefororphansny.org. Of course, there's a link in the show notes. You can find our resources there, and we've posted some of our FASD workshops that are available online for the first quarter of the new year. I always, every month, offer a free online intro to FASD. And then there's also a couple of workshops that are up there that there is a small registration fee for. But either way, you have to register so you can get the Zoom link. And all of the workshops are live. They're not previously recorded, so you can interact and you can get your questions answered and that kind of thing. So make sure that you check that out. Again, justicefororphansny.org. Click the training tab at the top of the page and you'll see FASD in the drop down, and that's where you'll learn more. You can find out and click the buttons there to join the support group, learn about the coaching, sign up for the FASD training, that type of thing. Or even if you want me to come to you, I do travel. I travel and teach and speak, and anything from adoptive and foster parent mom retreats, conferences, that kind of thing. Feel free to reach out to me if you would like me to come and speak at your event. And also check out my website, sandraflack.com, where you can also read my blog. We're trying to get that updated. It got a little sluggish throughout the holidays, but we're getting that caught up, so you can check those resources out there as well. And also find us on Facebook and Instagram. At Justice for Orphans is on both of those platforms. I myself, Sandra Flack, are on both of those platforms. And please follow, subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, give it a rating. That certainly helps us to be found more easily by those searching for a good podcast about adoption and foster care. Share it with your friends that are on this journey as well. Make sure that you do that. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And here we are at the end. I am so grateful that you chose to spend your valuable time with me today. I'm grateful to have you along for the journey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans, and check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.